Hi, and welcome to Edward Steichen, Photographer of the Week. Each week we will have a photographer that we look to for inspiration, and I'm really excited to start with Steichen. Steichen was born in Luxembourg in 1879. He grew up in the Midwest of the United States and began his work as a painter. He worked with the great photographer and gallery owner Alfred Stieglitz, and he brought some of the most important artists in Europe to the Stieglitz's gallery and really made a difference in American art in so many ways in his early work as a painter. He arranged the first exhibition of Rodin and Picasso in the United States, and he introduced Stieglitz to symbolism, expressionism, and cubism. They had an incredible friendship, up to the point when, at some point, Steichen, who had to make money, started doing work for pay and also joined the military to work in World War I. And so that came between the two of them. But they were very instrumental in moving photography and modern art forward in the new century. This is the little round mirror from 1902. It's a type of photography called platinum printing. Edward Steichen is one of my heroes, and he's the first photographer we're going to look at in Photo 5 because his work spanned and expressed the styles of the early 20th century. And he did such a diversity of images. He was an artist, a commercial portrait photographer, a war photographer, and a museum director. And he can inspire us in each of these roles about the power and diversity of photography. This photograph is considered pictorialist. It's a dreamy and soft focus effect in photography that was very popular in 1902 and emulated the paintings of the day. Steichen was a very powerful portrait photographer. This is from 1903, his portrait of Pierpont Morgan. Morgan was an incredibly powerful, rich industrialist. And Steichen only had moments to take a photograph. And his point was to make a photograph that could be used to paint a painting of Morgan. But Steichen also made a picture for himself. He really captured the impatience and energy of the sitter and the bonus of the small arm of the chair becoming a blade of a knife, if you look at it carefully. This really alluded to the ruthlessness of Morgan and the power of Morgan and the way that he used the board chair as a weapon. Steichen claimed it was unintentional, but this is a very important detail note and in this portrait of a powerful man. Here's Steichen in excuse me, this portrait is from 1917, and it does show a couple things that are really interesting and helpful for you to understand what it was like to be a photographer in this time. So what you'll notice is the scale of the camera, that the camera is an 8x10 camera. It's very large, and that was the size that needed. But also notice again how Steichen is interested in the self-portrait and how he shows himself at this time in his life. At this time, he became very interested. He had already been a war photographer in World War I, and he went from pictorialism, the dreamy pictures that we saw earlier, to straight photography. And with these studies of fruit and of cups and of different still life topics. He really went for a sharpness and wanted to have a new realism to his images. He also brought that to his portraits. Here's a portrait of Greta Garbo from 1928 for Vanity Fair magazine. And the unique manner he photographed her transforms her into a classical symbol of womanhood. She really is the essence of a woman. It's not glamour, but a kind of eternal beauty. And he really had a power with this. Here is another self-portrait he did from 1929 with all of his photographic paraphernalia. And you'll notice how he portrays himself now. He's now in his studio. There's shadows, there's more layers, there's lighting, and things have become much more complex, but really the way he wanted to go with his photography. This image was made for a Vanity Fair magazine. Self-portrait is a good exercise for you to try. You might think about how you would photograph yourself and how you could use light and shadow to express. You can use a self-timer if you have one on your camera or on your phone, or you can use a mirror. And you can also use shadows like Steichen did here. Experiment with this very exciting type of photography. Here's one of his early fashion photography pictures for Vogue. This really was groundbreaking in that the style was more important than the actual outfit. It was in 1934. And here, then he went back in 1943 to work again in the war. There's a portrait of him with his military uniform and a picture of him on the USS Lexington from 1943. World War II really brought Steichen back to the military and photographing and organizing pictures about the war. He did many photo exhibitions in this role, and this led to his work with the Museum of Modern Art in New York after the war as their director of photography. When he went to the Museum of Modern Art, he really looked at his experience in both World War I and World War II and wanted to make a new type of exhibition that talked about the goodness of humanity. He was so impacted by the pictures of war and the experience of war. He really wanted to change people's minds and have them care about each other. So he conceived of this photo exhibition to top all exhibitions. He had a vision of hundreds of photographs by hundreds of photographers, illustrating a belief in the goodness of humanity and the hope for the future. And the exhibition was called The Family of Man. He worked for over 3 years, gathering all of these photographs, planning everything. This is in 1954, and really trying to express. Every photograph was printed to his particular and very exacting standards. And this is the exhibition in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. It was an immersive experience, and we experience some of this now more. At that time, it was totally groundbreaking. The point was the actual exhibition and moving through the installations, as well as the amazing photographs by each of the photographers. It was an amazing success. Millions of photographs reviewed. Steichen and his staff edited down to thousands. Each one was printed, and then there was a book, The Family of Man. This book is still available. It has sold over 5 million copies. Millions of people have seen the exhibition, and it now has a permanent space in Steichen's home country of Luxembourg. So this summer, I was able to visit Luxembourg and see the Family of Man at its permanent installation in the castle here. And if we go here, you can see here's Luxembourg. And the exhibition is in Clairvaux in And it's just a wonderful, wonderful place to visit if you have that opportunity. You'll see it's not so very far from Paris, and it's really quite amazing. I'm going to share a little bit of that visit with all of you. So here's my husband, Gary Ordall, at the Family of Man entryway. We are both very excited to see this. And as it says in the wall tag, the exhibition was created in 1955 by Edward Steichen for the Museum of Modern Art. It's traveled the globe in various editions, and now this is the permanent display at Clairvaux Castle. It's a UNESCO Memory of the World Register, and it's very important historically and to really communicate. So these images are all original silver gelatin prints on Barita-based paper that were created for the exhibition. And they're really working to restore them and preserve them. And as you wander through, you really are immersed in the exhibition, multiple floors of images that go from birth to death to life to people in just a beautiful, beautiful way. And throughout the whole exhibition, the little piper comes again and again as you're wandering through. And you can really get a sense of this as we wander here across the page, across the space, looking at different ways that math and mathematics and science all come together. So Steichen really reached out to many photographers and brought their best work into this project. And you can see the scale when you're in there, how it's so, you're very immersed in the images. We see so many interesting points of view. I was just really, really moved by being there and being immersed in the images and seeing everything that Steichen thought about worrying about the world and about the nuclear bombs that had been used and how he was trying to make everyone feel the importance of humanity and the importance of our connections and that we are more alike than not alike. The joy of dance, the movement and music, connections of humans. And so if you get a chance to see this book, which is quite available, The Family of Man, you'll find it very inspiring and really can be a good lesson for how you might go forward with your own photography. Photographers here like Henri Cartier-Bresson, Dorothea Lange, and many other photographers that created these images that Steichen then used to tell the larger story. If you're with a photographer, this could happen. There's my husband taking a picture of the picture on the ceiling. And from W. Eugene Smith, an amazing photojournalist, pictures of his two children. There's a picture of Steichen with his dog Tripod. He was a three-legged dog, and that's why he called him Tripod. He photographed right up to the end of his life, creating an immense and incredible project of photography. There's a wonderful biography of him, and there'll be a link under this video of the biography. But I really recommend that you look at the other videos and the other links here and really think about how you can be inspired by the work and life of Edward Steichen. Thank you so much for being here.